Good morning, everybody. How are you? Well, it's morning here. I'm not sure what time it is by you. But anyway, I'm continuing with my mini series on some resources you could use. So I had one video on safe allies, inner allies. I had another video on safe space imagery. And today we're going to use container imagery. Okay, so this is a popular technique that's used in therapy, often trauma therapy. And it's to kind of help us contain our inner experiences and have some control about when we let them out or when we deal with them. So it's sort of like in this picture here, we have a kind of like a treasure chest, and it's just one image we could use about keeping certain things inside and maybe locking with a key so it feels safe and then retrieving it later on. So, all right, let's do a little bit of a background here. So if you happen to be lucky enough to grow up in a healthy family environment, you probably learned from your caregivers how to manage and contain your emotions and inner experiences. You may have learned how to calm yourself and calm your emotions and soothe them, and know when to put them on the side and know when it's safe to bring them back out again. So there's a sense of healthy boundaries, not just between yourself and others, but between your inside and the outside. So things that are on the inside, you could keep them on the inside when you want to and let them on the outside when you want to. And from other people, you can let in what you want to from other people and let out what you want to toward other people, like sharing when you choose. So that would be the healthy scenario. And I know a lot of us have not had that healthy experience, and that's why we're here today. Okay, so trauma impacts our sense of containment. So it breaks the choice we have about our container. So sometimes we may feel like the container is completely inadequate and we're flooded with painful experiences, such as flashbacks, powerful feelings, or memories. So we don't have any control over it. It just comes over us and we feel overwhelmed. Other times we may not have access to the things. It's almost like the container is locked away and I don't have the key to it. So things might be dissociated and blocked out of my consciousness. And even if I really sincerely want to remember it, there's a block to getting access to it and remembering it and working with it. So those are the two extremes that can happen, especially if you're traumatized. So it's still possible to create a sense of healthy containment now, even if you've had those issues with trauma that I just referenced. So by learning some of these containment techniques that I'm going to teach you today, you could have that greater choice about when you deal with things and with whom you deal with things, and when you want to have them out and work on them, and when you want to put them aside. And it takes some practice, of course, but it's something that still could be possible. So this helps us to develop some moderation so that we're less overwhelmed. We're more in our comfortable window of tolerance, so we feel more at ease and more able to engage and feel like we could function in our life. So let's practice safe container imagery today. So there's definitely some benefits to doing this, as you could probably guess so far. So it provides us with temporary relief from our disturbances. So instead of being flooded by them, I could decide, okay, this right now isn't the time. Let's say I'm at work and I need to focus on my work. So I could take my painful experience and put it in a container so that I could function at work today. So I could put different kinds of things in there, whatever makes sense for me. So I could put uncomfortable thoughts and feelings, painful memories that are maybe too hard to deal with right now, flashbacks, stressors, even current stressors, and traumatic material. So in a way, you might already have some of this ability, but it's not conscious. So if you already had the ability to in some circumstances to compartmentalize or to dissociate, then you already have some personal experience doing containment. But again, it may not have been in your conscious control. So when you practice container imagery, it takes that same skill you might already have and learn how to do it more deliberately so you feel you have the choice. But the key is, though, that we're not locking things away forever. The deal is, okay, if I put it in the container, I agree that when the time is right, I'm going to take it out and start to work on it. Even if I take one piece out at a time, my agreement with myself is that I'm just going to pace it and work on it when it's the right time. Okay. Okay, so some examples of containers. So the imagery is up to you. You could pick something that feels like a good match, that makes sense. So you could use things like Tupperware, even like that. If you're, kind of like me, you like to work in the kitchen. File drawers. So maybe each file in the drawer contains a different emotion or a different memory, and you could kind of organize it in your imaginary file drawers. A safe might be a good one because it feels like it's locked very securely. So you have the confidence that I could put it away and it won't just come out. And I have the control over when I punch in that code to take it out. Similarly, if you want it even stronger, because you have a lot of big stuff and you really need some major container, a bank vault. So that's some serious protection in there. So that, and you might have big overwhelming memories that need a big bank vault, and a little safe just isn't the right size. Perhaps even jars. So let's say you have a stack of different kinds of jars and each jar contains a different thing. And then you could decide which jar you want to open. And maybe you just want to take a little spoonful out of the jar. You don't want to dump out the whole jar. It could be a chest of drawers. So each drawer might contain different things and you could decide which drawer you want to open. It could even be some locks on the drawers, and some actual chests have keys. Perhaps you're more of a storage bin kind of a person. Maybe there's a series of storage bins you have with stuff in it like that. Even if you're more of a digital person, you can imagine that I saved different files on my computer, my mental computer, or on my mental cloud of different stuff. And I have a password protected file, and I can't open it and nobody else can open it unless I just decide to open it. And then inside that file contains the emotions or thoughts or memories. So here's some steps you could follow to try to use container imagery. So first, it requires some mindfulness. You have to recognize that I'm having a difficult experience right now. So I might tune into myself and say, geez, I really have a lot of anxiety, or I keep thinking about this argument I had yesterday, and I keep rehashing it in my mind, and it's a little too much for me right now. So the second question is, well, is this a good time for me to deal with this? Or would it be better to put it aside and deal with it another time? So if it's not the right time for me to work it through or think about it, then I could choose to put some or all of that problem in an imaginary container. So step 2, I'm going to pick out a container. So you could use one of the choices I offered you before, or something completely different, whatever you'd like, because it's your imagination. If you want to make it more solid, you could imagine that container using your senses. So sight, you could imagine all the qualities visually of what it looks like, maybe the size, the color, if you have a smell to it. So a guy's holding some cardboard boxes, maybe it has a certain cardboard smell, or who knows, maybe a musty smell for a treasure box. I don't know, whatever you want. Touch, imagine how the object feels. Maybe you could feel a certain solidity of it, so you know it's secure. And if there's any sounds associated with it, or maybe there's no sound at all. Maybe once you put the thoughts in the container and seal it, you won't hear them anymore. So maybe the absence of the sound is the key. It might even make a noise when it closes or locks, and that noise is the clue that it's now sealed. So just wanted to do a little visual today. So I brought with me a container. So this is the container. I have a bunch of these that I use to put my soup in at lunchtime for work. So my lentil soup is my lunch of champions. And I bring this container with me, and I put the soup in it, and it doesn't spill. When I close this container, it makes a certain noise. Hear it? It's 3 little clicks. And I know from personal experience that the soup doesn't spill out when I have it in this container and I hear those clicks. So you might have a certain container in real life you have personal experience with that you are sure doesn't spill, and that might be part of your imagery. So it could be that, or again, something imaginary, whatever you like. And if it helps to do the container exercise, hold a real container, practice with one. And especially if you have a hard time visualizing or focusing, you could just look at the container and imagine doing the exercise. And that makes it a little more concrete, and you could feel it, and you could, deal with it more personally. Okay, so step 3. So now I'm putting the material into the container. So I'm going to imagine it going in just the right way. And just the right way might mean one piece at a time. It might mean that it's floating in. It might mean that it's different pieces of paper with messages on it being tossed in there. It could be that it's all dumped in at once. It could be done in a magical way. It could be done in a realistic way. You could watch the jar filling up, for example, however you like it. But you're going to imagine material going in there in the way that you want it to go in there. And again, you could create different containers for different emotions or memories. So maybe all the anxiety goes in one container, and all of the trauma feelings go in another container, and all the bad thoughts about an argument you had yesterday goes in another container. So all the things have their own place. And you can imagine that the container is getting stronger and stronger with every bit that goes in it, so that it feels even more solid and you feel even more comfortable that it's holding your experience. And then when everything is in there that you want to be in there, you can imagine closing and sealing the container, maybe even putting a lock on it, or setting the passcode, or imagining that someone else has the passcode and you won't be able to open it unless you ask that person to open it. So it feels like you're not just going to open it and lose control of the process. So you could then just notice how everything is in that container, and it's going to stay there until you are ready to remove it. So step 4. So now that everything you want to put in the container is in the container, notice how you feel. So how do you feel now? Is there any positive feelings or sense of relief? Maybe you could give a word or some words to that feeling. So maybe relief, or put aside, or whatever feels like a good, way to describe, just a couple of words. And then you could pair those words with the feelings that you have and kind of strengthen the two together. And step 5 is down the road at some point, maybe later in the day or later in the week, when you want to take out some of the material to process, you're going to pick the right place and the right time, and if you're with somebody, the right relationship. So you want to be in a place where you feel strong, supported, resourced. You feel like you're in your window of tolerance. You're feeling comfortable. You're feeling like you could handle it. You're with somebody you trust, maybe a therapist, if you want to be with someone when this happens. You're not feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling calm. You have the space, all that kind of stuff. So you're making a wise mind decision about how you want to take it out. And again, you have some choice about if you want to take out one little bit, 1%, or if you want to take out more than that. Another optional exercise you could do is, just to get a sense of how the container works, practice putting in something minor and then closing the container and then taking it out, and then put it in again and then take it out, and just get that sense of I have the control over the process. So something minor might be, I overslept this morning and I was a little upset about that, and I was a little late for work. It's not the end of the world, but it bothered me a little bit, and now I have to put it aside to function at work. So I'm going to put that experience in my container, and then 10 minutes later, let me pull it back out and examine it again, and let me put it back in again. Another container actually you could even try is a journal. You can write in the journal for a few minutes and then close the journal and imagine that it's contained in the journal. And then when you're ready to look at it again, you could open the journal and look at it again. So all that stuff is going to give you the confidence that you have control over the process. So again, remember with trauma, you lose control of the containment. You either flood it or it's inaccessible, but now you're practicing being the one to decide. Okay, so just a quick review of the references I use for this. And again, a lot of people talk about containment. It's not just these 2 books. There's tons of stuff out there. But the 2 books I got some ideas from for this was Trauma and Dissociation, Informed Internal Family Systems. It's a bit of a mouthful. And Coping with Trauma-Related Dissociation. Both some nice resources you could check out if you'd like. All right, so I hope you're ready to be contained a little bit. So feel free to give it a try, but remember, it takes some practice. So be patient with yourself if you're going to do this, and maybe try it a little bit every day and see how it works out. All right, everybody. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you soon. Take care now.